I am Bryce Newberger, and this is the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix, Chapter 25. Cal faced the eight-armed monster with a look of sheer terror. All around the room, children were frozen in horror. The monster screamed at them with bloody murder. It radiated fear from it like a generator. Artemis had lost all semblance of refinery, and his schemes had finally turned him into the creature he really was, an embodiment of hands that reached for anything it could get its grasp on to corrupt and decay and pollute. He fixed his gaze upon the small boy. The stare was accompanied with an incessant itching in Cal's skull. Cal doubled over and placed his hands on his head. It felt like a giant bug was picking at his brain. He caught a glimpse of his mother being eaten by a vulture, picking her corpse clean of its organs. Then he saw Teddy being set upon by wolves. Cal cried out in anguish as he watched each member of his family die in a multitude of creatively graphic displays. Artemis rushed in and picked Cal up by the scalp, his large hands enveloping the small head. There was a bit of effort visible as his muscles tensed and flexed. Cal learned firsthand what it felt like for your skull to begin to crack under immense pressure. In his current visage, he was watching his father, Bryn, be crushed by a giant ogre. Tears streamed through the fingers that were squeezed over his eyes. "No!" Cal shrieked in defiance. The tables turned. Artemis now saw Bryn in a shared vision of an ogre. Cal and Artemis watched as Bryn broke free of the ogre's grasp and drew his sword, ready to combat the giant. The ogre convulsed, and 6 more arms burst from its sides. Bryn charged in with his sword. He ducked one of the massive arms, but caught another blow into his gut as he soared back into the wall. The ogre followed his attacks by jumping onto the boy's father and releasing a torrent of pummeling fists. Bryn blocked as many as he could, but he was taking a real beating. A few fists cracked repeatedly into Bryn's jaw, and the vision failed. Bryn was no longer being attacked by an ogre. Cal was pinned against the wall, and the terror was assaulting him instead. Cal was fading fast. He saw the terror's sadistic grin in a backdrop of the destroyed orphanage, with a thunderstorm raging in the background. A fist interrupted the vision with a curtain of painful darkness. The fist retreated to reveal the grin and the storm, but this time a figure was standing in the rain. It was Bryn. He was smiling at Cal. He was proud of his son for his incredible courage. The fist interrupted the view again with punishing blackness. When sight came back, Bryn was gone and a shadowy figure was visible, backlit by lightning. "Put the boy down," yelled the shadow at the terror. Artemis craned his neck too quickly, causing cartilage to resound in a disgusting pop. He was panting with effort from the pain he was dishing out. Dazon pointed a sword at the creature. "Come, Artemis. Let's finish our business from the guild tower." The terror lunged at Dazon with wanton abandon. This cost him a hand as the expert swordsman lopped one off with a flick of his blade. He then returned the attack with a signature snap of his fingers as flame licked the monster's exposed flesh. Artemis jumped high into the ceiling where he stuck like a spider. His eyes locked hard onto Dazon. The black warrior withdrew a throwing knife from his cloak, but then stopped as his brain began to itch. He blinked twice, then looked back at his quarry. The room had been replaced with complete darkness. He was swimming in an ocean of nothing. Dazon closed his eyes. He focused on smell, hearing, and feeling. His mind compelled him to believe he was in another dimension, but he had learned a long time ago how to master his own mind. He felt a sharp pressure on his shoulder, followed by a wet, warm feeling. He was bleeding. He spun and jumped towards where the damaged portion of the orphanage should be. He hit something hard, and then felt a floating sensation. He must have missed the opening, smacked the wall, and was now falling into the courtyard below the building. He twisted his momentum towards his damaged shoulder. With a tremendous thud, he felt himself land. His vision returned slowly. He had fallen on Artemis, who was now scrambling to get up with multiple broken arms. Dazon raised his sword high, and lightning struck the blade as thunder cracked a war cry. He slashed violently at the ex-regent mage, cleaving from bottom arm to shoulder, his hot blade amputating the side of its victim like carving a turkey. Artemis locked eyes with Dazon, attempting to induce yet another vision. Instead, he was treating to a rolling view of sky and dirt as his head tumbled away from his decapitated body. Dazon ascended into the orphanage where Cal was choking on his own blood. The Dark Warrior picked up the 6-year-old and walked out of view without any argument from the children or mistress. Heat radiated on Cal's face. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was pleasant to wake up to as a stark contrast from the ice-cold life he had been living. A warm morning greeted Cal when his eyes opened. Birds were chirping. Clouds were billowing. and the sun was just hidden enough as to not create an eyesore. He was lying in a bed facing a window. "You self-heal," came a familiar voice behind him. It was the savior stranger. "That will come in handy for your training." Training? Cal mouthed the word, but mere thought of speaking caused his head to reel. "You were too dangerous to leave behind, both as a loose end." Dazon paused for a moment as if speaking to himself next. "And a wild card." His tone changed as he brought the conversation back to the two of them. "I had returned to kill you, but in regards to what happened last night, I decided you may be too powerful to ignore. That can be your first lesson. It is better to be powerful." "Better than what?" Cal whispered. Dazon could tell questions were going to be persistent with this one. "Better than anything." Cal understood. Thank you for listening. I'm Bryce Newberger, and this has been the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix. If you enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to purchase the full book, then either look up New Books on the Google Play bookstore, NEU Books, or simply click the link in the description. The book is only $5, and I appreciate your support.